We are mindful that CVUUS gathers on this land seized from the Western Abenaki people by European colonists. We respect the Abenaki spiritual relationship to the land and waters of the Champlain Valley, and we are committed to building a peaceful and more just relationship with them and to promoting knowledge about their history and culture. Good morning. Good morning. On this uncharacteristically spring-like day, I hope everybody enjoyed that incredible sun we had yesterday. No snow, but sun. Welcome to those of you here in our sanctuary and to those of you gathering with us on Zoom. To CVUUS, the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. You are welcome here no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You're welcome to join us in community as we learn to live and love together. Thank you. Francois, if this is your first time with us, please sign the book in the foyer. I used to say lobby, but some people like foyer better, so in the foyer. And you'll receive our monthly newsletter. Please also join us downstairs for refreshments and conversation so we can get to know you a little bit better. If you need some kind of hearing devices, we have some great ones at the tech team in the back. If you haven't already done so, this is a great time to put those cell phones in worship mode. We have a way of sharing joys and concerns, milestones and passages. There are yellow cards that we have in the foyer that one can pick up and write down, and they'll be read during the service. My name is Rebecca Shrum. I am a member of this congregation and of the worship team, and today I have the pleasure of serving as worship associate for one of our interim ministers, the Reverend Christina Sillari. lots of us got together to put this service together. I want to thank our tech team, Samantha Smith, Dorothy Mammon, Abby Sessions, Rich Wolfson, and anybody else who helped. Steve Butterfield for hosting our Zoom friends, the Flower Buds for beautiful seasonal decorations, and our very own worship team for hosting social hour, and Lise Anderson and Brett Millier for greeting and ushering. So stand as you are able for our gathering song, 1008 in the Teal. As Unitarian Universalists, we draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Come, let us worship.
Thank you, Becky. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So today, Tyran will light our chalice, which is the symbol of our faith. And after Tyran lights our chalice, we will share the words that will show up on the screen. Thank you, Taryn. So let's share these words by bell hooks. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom. To act, should be a second slide, thank you. To act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. With the intention of choosing love, we light our chalice.
I'm enjoying hearing people. It's kind of like a celebrity came out. And they've only been here once, but I heard like, Jet Pig. Jet Pig might do autographs at social hour if you're lucky. So, yes, indeed, I am here with Jet Pig, who uses they, them pronouns. Just a reminder, Jet Pig is a visitor here who I think is going to stay from the UUA headquarters in Boston. And they have come to help all of us, of all ages, learn about the proposed shared UU values, which will be voted on this June at General Assembly. And we will send delegates to that virtually to vote. So, let's see what's in the jetpack. Jet Pig, with a jetpack fueled by love. Jet Pig. All right. No comment. You know, you do you, right? Okay, so I have a slip that says, love is at the center. Love is at the center. And what we're talking about is this. It's okay if you can't see all the words. We'll have some of these up on walls, and there'll be a big one down in the fellowship hall slowly starting to create itself. So these are the 6 proposed UU shared principles with love at the center, meaning everything we do here comes out of love. You start from love, right? That's where you go to start, and that's where you come back if you're having a hard time with any of this stuff. So the 6 proposed are justice, equity, transformation, plurality, interdependence, and generosity. It's okay if you don't know what all those words mean yet. So today we are going to see a book to introduce us to this love at the center idea. This is a book called I Am Love, a book of compassion by Susan Verde. And she wrote a whole series of books that are amazing. I Am Love, I Am Me, I Am Action. I don't even remember them all. I Am Yoga, I think is one. So take it away. I Am Love, a book of compassion. When I see someone going through a storm of hurt and unfairness, of anger and sadness, when the sun disappears and the skies go dark and I see there is fear, I ask myself, what can I do to let the light back in? I put my hands on my heart and listen, and that is where I find the answer. I have compassion. I act with tenderness. I am love. I can listen and not say a word. I can be there. Love is being present. I can hug and hold and say everything will be all right. Love is comfort. I can speak softly and choose my words and actions carefully. Love is gentle. I can give thanks for all I have and am able to share. Love is gratitude. I can keep my mind and body safe and healthy. Love is taking care of me. I can know that no one is perfect. Love is understanding. I can do my best to make things better when something is wrong. Love is effort. What's happening? I can celebrate those I've loved before. Love is remembering. I can find goodness in a kind word, a helping hand, or a shared smile. Love is tiny gestures. I can breathe in the air that the whole world shares and know all creatures are made from the very same stardust. Love is connection. When the clouds roll in for others and for me, I now know there is something I can do. I can let my heart lead the way. I am love. You are love. We are love. And with love, we will weather the storm and light up the sky together. Love is taking care of your friends' candy wrappers without commenting. Because someday you'll want them to do it for you. All right, my friends, time to go over to RE. Today we're going to be looking at love ourselves and doing a few things, including decorating cookies for the Charter House Valentine's Day meal next week. So let's go.
And now we come to the time in our service for the offering. Each Sunday, we share our plate with a nonprofit or other organization that shares our values, and this month is the Black Church Food Security Network, which works with Black farmers and Black churches to create food hubs to support their diverse communities. Please be as generous as you are able.
Thank you for your generosity. There are no yellow cards. Interesting. That doesn't mean that there aren't any milestones or passages that we're holding in our hearts. So let's take a moment and go into our hearts. So I invite you to uncross your limbs, sit up tall, take a few let's take 3 deep breaths together, and on the exhale, we're gonna make a sound, and the sound is A, and A helps to vibrate the heart chakra, which is a vortex of energy from the Hindu tradition. 3 A's, ready? Deep breath through the nose. I invite us to drop a little deeper into the center of our chest, into this amazing network of nerve energy, so much so that it acts as a brain. I invite our breath to connect with this heart center. We'll sit here, breathing together into the heart for a few minutes. I invite you now to expand this energy in your heart beyond your physical self, in all directions to the people sitting around you. And keep expanding it using your breath, your intention, your imagination into this whole room. Into the whole building, reaching the children. Into the town of Middlebury. To the whole county. Expanding this heart energy into the state of Vermont, into the whole country, and beyond our borders, into all the other countries. Surrounding the entire earth. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, choir. My grandmother, Anna Kakianis, devout Greek Orthodox and the matriarch of my mother's side of the family, taught me a personal lesson about Universalism. A survivor of poverty, loss, oppression, and many tragedies, Anna bestowed upon me the gifts of courage, strength, integrity, and authenticity during her lifetime. Yet perhaps the greatest gift she gave to me came at the end of her very long life. During the weeks just before her death, I would often find my grandmother sitting tall in her wheelchair, hands folded in her lap, eyes closed. She seemed to be in a blissful state of meditation, although she never meditated. When anyone visited her, she spoke the words, "I love you, I love you, I love you," repeatedly. During one of our last encounters, I sat down in the chair next to her and waited for her to finish her mantra. And then I began to share whom of the many grandchildren in her life I was. And she said to me, "It's okay, dear. It doesn't matter. You are all the same. I love you." I was stunned. I had a secret belief that I was more special to her than the rest of her grandchildren. But she transcended this idea of specialness for me and helped me see a bigger love. Universalism is about big love. Are you a Universalist? No one's answering. Are you, maybe you don't know, are you a Unitarian?
Yes.
Some people are saying yes. Okay. Maybe you don't, some of you don't know the difference if you're new to our faith, right? Or maybe some of you just see yourself as a Unitarian Universalist. And maybe some of you you don't identify with any of it, which is totally fine. So here are some sweeping generalizations about both. Unitarians were upper educated class urban dwellers upholding freedom, reason, and tolerance. I just want to do a side note that I really don't like that word, tolerance. And we've been using it for a really long time. I prefer acceptance. Universalists were uneducated farmers from the country, and they believed in faith, hope, and love. The Unitarian ministers were typically educated, many at Harvard, who had settled ministries and churches. The Universalist pastors often were self-educated itinerant preachers. These are sweeping generalizations. Up until 1863, all clergy from both traditions were, guess?
White.
Both white men. Simply put, Unitarians believed in the oneness of God, and Universalists believed everyone can be saved. Unitarians lived their faith from their minds, and Universalists from their hearts. Another generalization I'm making. These two denominations merged in the 1960s, which is when Unitarian Universalism began, and it was a merger of differences. There were similarities, of course, or they wouldn't merge, but it was a merger of differences and not without tension. I've seen it over the years. I believe as a denomination, we have focused on our Unitarian values for 60 years. And it's time to fully act upon our Universalist values. American Universalism began in the 18th century as a radical and optimistic Christian heresy responding to the grim doctrines of Calvinistic Puritanism. The story of how and why Universalism took root in America can be understood by the disparity between the two messages of two of the greatest preachers of the day, Jonathan Edwards and Hosea Ballou. During the Great Awakening, Edwards, a Calvinist, preached one of the most famous sermons in American history, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God," bringing his congregation to fearful wailing as he described the misery and damnation that they deserved while ripping off his robes and tearing his linen shirt to shreds in self-abasing frenzy and disgust. Listen to an excerpt of his sermon preached in 1741.
The God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider or some other loathsome insect over fire, abhors you and is dreadfully provoked. His wrath towards you burns like fire. He looks upon you as worthy of nothing else but to be cast into the fire. You have offended him, O sinner. You hang by a slender thread with the flames of divine wrath flashing about it and ready every moment to singe and burn it asunder. You have nothing to lay hold of to save yourself. There is nothing you have ever done, nothing you can do to induce God to spare you one moment.
Cheery stuff, huh? This 18th century Puritanism was percolating through the land with the message that most people were doomed to the fire of hell in eternal damnation and misery for all their weakness and wickedness. Just about everyone believed in an angry God who decided at the beginning of creation the elect few who would make it into the pearly gates. It was over this cold, glooming, and threatening religious landscape that blew the fresh, warm breezes of Universalism, a theology of love. Reverend Hosea Ballou, the leading preacher of Universalism throughout the 19th century, contested the Calvinistic theology of exclusion and rejected the Christian notion of punishment in hell. Listen to his words.
It is well known that the human heart is capable of becoming soft or hard, kind or unkind, merciful or unmerciful, by education and habit. On this principle, we contend that the infernal torments which false religion has placed in the future world, and which ministers have, with an overflowing zeal, so constantly held up to the people and urged with all their learning and eloquence. They have hardened the hearts of their fellow creatures with a spirit of enmity, the cruelty of their doctrine, and the wrath of God which has overcome the native kindness and compassion of the human heart.
Ballou and the other early American Universalists bravely preached a gospel of inclusion, reconciliation, and hope right in the face of Calvinistic negativity, a gospel of love that unashamedly affirmed the worth and dignity of all people. The American people, hungry for positive, hopeful, people-oriented religion, flocked to Universalist churches, making Universalism the sixth largest denomination in the mid-1800s. But it was the Universalist women leaders who expanded and actualized this faith throughout the country. Universalist women stood at the forefront of the major social reform movements of the 19th century. They believed in working to bring the kingdom of heaven to life in a practical way in the world. In their work for abolition, women's rights, temperance, prison reform, public hygiene, and peace, they embodied the Universalist injunction to make love manifest for all people. In 1863, Universalist women were affirmed and recognized as leaders, beginning with the ordination of Olympia Brown, who became the first woman in America, and perhaps the world, to be ordained by full denominational authority. By the time the women's suffrage amendment was ratified in 1920, 88 Universalist women had been ordained. Mary Livermore was perhaps the most famous Universalist female reformer. She was known as the Queen of the Platform for her magnificent speeches, which she gave all over the country and in Europe. It was said that the mere announcement that she would speak was enough to fill any lecture hall. Here's an excerpt from her speech called "The Battle of Life."
We are approaching an era when war shall be no more. The world is ready for it. Unconsciously and unintentionally, the powers that be have been preparing for it. For they have increased the destructive power of the enginery of war so marvelously that the nations employing it against each other will both suffer almost irreparable injury. When a handful of men can blow up a navy and another handful can annihilate an army, war ceases to be war and becomes assassination. If we should wake up tomorrow to find that all civilized nations had agreed to arbitrate their quarrels, that all armies were to be disbanded, that all fortifications to be dismantled, and that the giant battleships transformed into vessels for peaceful uses, how much the world would gain by the change.
How relevant her words are today. So this inclusive notion of universalism caught fire in other religious groups over time, to the point where a large percentage of denominations adopted some idea of universal salvation into their values. Scholars say that universalism, the universalism that swept through the country in the 18th century, has been subsumed because it has been adopted by society at large. Or has it? While mainstream Americans appear not to be worried about going to hell, universalism has not yet been realized, which for me would mean to extend a radical love and acceptance for all those we perceive as different as the other, as the enemy. Who are your enemies? This is why I am so excited about the proposed revision of our denomination's Article 2, which transforms our 7 principles created in 1985, which I think are inherently Unitarian, into a covenant and values, which you, Poppy, shared earlier, which I feel are deeply Universalist, because love is at the center. Many years ago, my father, a non-practicing Catholic, inquired about my belief system and the ethos of my church life. After my rather lengthy description, he said, surprisingly, "I think I am a Unitarian Universalist." Yeah, well, at the time, this was many, many years ago, I remember having trouble imagining my father, who was a cigarette-smoking Republican with a trade school education, who carried a gun, didn't believe in recycling, and didn't even know what NPR was, being welcomed into one of our congregations. Now I see that my perception is exactly what Universalism is not. In my mind, I had put my father in one world and Unitarian Universalists in another, and had decided that the two worlds were incompatible. Now, as Universalism penetrates my soul, I see what a blessing it would be for someone like my father to show up here on a Sunday morning. Can we as a congregation practice a radical universalistic love? Can you embrace the common people? A universalism that led Hosea Ballou to say, there is no such thing as the best in the world of individuals. Can we practice a universalism that declares none of us can be saved until all of us are saved? Which reminds me of one of the core principles of the Course in Miracles. We go to heaven 2 by 2, not 1 by 1. The practice of universalism is to include, accept, and have compassion for all beings, to deeply understand that each one of us is wounded, is difficult at times, and occasionally even downright harmful to one another. And yet, all our hearts, as Ballou said, are capable of being soft, kind, and merciful. Yet from habit and education, from trauma and tragedy, or even apathy and laziness, we become closed off to love, to our own hearts, our own family, our neighbors, the earth, and even to God. Universalism requires an unwavering intention, an intention to transcend not difference, but hatred and fear of difference, and the willingness to develop a loving, acceptance and presence to all those who cross our paths. I think universalism requires courage. Courage to take a thorough inventory of our personal prejudice, named and unnamed, courage to know ourselves and love ourselves despite our afflictions, courage to let go of our specialness as individuals and as a congregation, and courage to choose love again and again and again. So, as the fires of hell, damnation, and exclusion, they're still here, right? Continue to rise from the old, outdated consciousness of fear that has been unhealed in this country for hundreds of years. It's our call as Universalists to respond to this fear with a very big love. And as we continue to be shocked and surprised by revolution, rebellion, weather, and earth changes, and while the powers that be continue to try and divide us, we must evolve into a universal revolutionary love together, 2 by 2, conversation by conversation, person to person, heart to heart. We can create heaven on earth. Universalism is the heart of our faith. And as we, as people of faith, are called into that bigger love to eradicate fear and hatred, we can love the whole world into freedom. We leave you with a poem by a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation and poet laureate Joy Harjo, who I feel articulates the message of universalism so much in her poetry.
Prayer for my enemies. And whom do I call my enemy? An enemy must be worthy of engagement. I turn in the direction of the sun and keep walking. It's the heart that asks the question, not my furious mind. The heart is the smaller cousin of the sun. It sees and knows everything. It hears the gnashing, even as it hears the blessing. The door to the mind should only open from the heart. An enemy who gets in risks the danger of becoming a friend.
Time to sing appropriate African American hymn, There Is More Love Somewhere. What number is it?
95.
Thank you. So we have two very important pathways to connection. The first, in the Council on Ministry and the board are very empowered, excited, committed to us as a congregation doing anti-racism work. There's going to be a workshop on I don't want to get the date wrong, Saturday, May 2nd. March, sorry, that's very soon. March, that's why I'm announcing it, because it's very soon. March 2nd. It's from 10 to 2, it's 4 hours. Paula Cole-Jones, she's the co-author of the CVUUS Principle. She's an amazing speaker. She's a Black U leader who has led workshops for other Vermont congregations. The workshop she's doing for us is called Building a Culture of Inclusion. And I really encourage you to come, especially if you're a leader in this congregation. But everyone is welcome. It's going to be on Zoom, so you can actually do it from home if you like. Because she doesn't travel anymore, she does everything on Zoom. We will have it in the sanctuary on Zoom. And there'll be a lot of small breakout groups, both on Zoom and in the sanctuary. So those of you who come to the sanctuary, you'll be with other people, there'll be snacks, there'll be an announcement coming out at the beginning of the week. You don't have to remember any of this. But please, if you're around, decide to come on March 2nd from 10 to 2. Another important announcement that Hannah Sessions is going to do, who's our vice president. You don't need that.
Genetics. Morning, everybody. That last song always chokes me up a little bit. So, whew. A great announcement from the board today. We've already announced the very happy news that Reverend Tricia and Reverend Christina have agreed to remain with us for another 2.5 years. As our interim ministers. Knowing that they'll be here to lead us through what will certainly be a period of change is both comforting and energizing. Both our larger community and Champlain Valley are experiencing such significant change. And it's a perfect time for us to really lean into our principles with love at the center and even more actively demonstrate our commitment to social justice. To that end, today, on behalf of the board, I'm excited to announce that our very own Tom Morgan has signed on to serve as our ministerial intern from May of this year until June of 2025. We all know Tom's moving presence and words from the pulpit, and seen his dedication to justice and advocacy on the ground through his work at Charterhouse and elsewhere. But for those who may not know, Tom is officially a UU candidate for ministerial fellowship and a member of the UU Society for Community Ministries. He is in his last couple of years as a presidential scholar at Chicago Theological Seminary. Tom and Irina, as most of us know, moved to Penn with Leslie and Amaya in 2021 after successful careers in Washington, D.C. Tom tells me he, quote, traded in his career in national security for one in spiritual security. Vermont values drew them here as a place to raise their family. So to complete his degree, Tom will be serving in what the UUA calls a hybrid ministerial internship. With the guidance of our ministers and overseen by a committee of members of this congregation as well, In addition to learning with and supporting our congregation directly through administration, worship, pastoral care, he will be building on our already strong presence in our community, helping us explore and demonstrate our commitment to social justice, and generally mobilizing us into justice-focused work wherever we might feel called. Tom will help us live out our 8th principle covenant that we approved last year. So Tom's ultimate goal is to serve the broader community as a community minister. In other words, not necessarily to serve a congregation, but to serve a community, so it means he doesn't have to move. So please help the board in welcoming Tom into this new role, and together let's make the most of the time we have with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Trisha and I are really excited about Tom, and there is a caveat to this. Should I say it? So the caveat is typically the MFC, which has all the power over us ministers, doesn't allow members of congregations to do internships in their own congregations, right? So some of you may already know that. And Trisha and I feel very strongly that this is going to work out for everybody. And so Tom has filed a waiver, and Trisha and I are writing a letter to the MFC. And I have every belief, and I want you to all believe, that it's going to happen. Thank you. All right. Can we stand for the closing words? And if you feel comfortable, please hold somebody's hand. Yeah, you can move to grab someone's hand if you like. And if you don't want to hold hands because of the germ thing, you know, I get it. All right, ready? Here are our closing words. They're by Hafiz. I know I quote him a lot. And they're called A Great Need. Out of a great need, we are all holding hands and climbing. Not loving is a letting go. Listen, the terrain around here is far too dangerous for that. Blessed be. So I want to thank Becky for today. Thank you. She'll extinguish our chalice. And please join us for refreshments downstairs. There's an elevator if you need it, and I'll see you there.